So on the factoring test tomorrow, we are going to go through all the easiest to the hardest. And well, let's say that you had a 5 in everything like this. Do you get all of those have a 5 in it? Well, if you had a calculator, it wouldn't be that bad, would it? I'll be your calculator. What would you want to know? If 5 goes into everything like that, what do you want me to do? If I'm the calculator, what are you going to ask me to do? Yeah, I'm going to take a 5 out, so divide this by 5, and then what would you have left? X squared. Divide this by 5, and couldn't the calculator do that? Yeah, I'll be your calculator. What's 25 divided by 5? 5x. And then what's 30 divided by 5? 6. And look at that. Will that factor? Yes, it will. Everybody factor it again. And this is the part where I have said is a 3-step process. First, you figure out what makes this term, which usually is really easy. It's x and x. What if that had been like 3x squared? Then you would have used 3x and x. Okay, so x and x. And then I say, think about what signs have to be here and here. What signs have to be there? Say it. Plus. Because there's only pluses in the problem, it has to be plus. Then last but not least, if you're thinking 6 and 1, you're thinking wrong, because the total adds up to 6x and 1x makes 7x. It can't be 6 and 1. What does it have to be? What else makes a 6? 3 and 2. And watch what that makes. 2x, 3x makes 5x. Cool. Now, what else besides factoring is on this test? Really only one other thing. And that is, I mean, there could be other little tiny things, but the only other major thing is, what makes this equal 0? They're called the zeros. What makes this part 0? If you put in x equals, not 3, not 0, what makes this whole thing equal 0? Negative 3. What makes this whole thing, this whole side, equal 0? Negative 2. So those are called the zeros of the equation. If you don't have to, but if you wanted to be sure you were right, you could plug these into this equation and it would work out that the answer comes out to 0. That's because they're called the zeros. Negative 3 also. If you had put it here and here in the x's, it would have worked. All right, so let's go through it from easy to hard. That was kind of a medium, not the hardest ever, but not the easiest ever either. Let's try an easy one. 2x squared plus 4x. A lot of people get stumped because this is the kind that only has one parenthesis, and the GCF goes out front. Next, kids will think, at least they think, oh yeah, they're both even, so 2 goes into it. So they just put a 2 out here. Wrong. Because there's something else. 2x. And I've tried to teach you that you can, if you want to know what goes on the inside, you can just do this. Nope. Because there's an x in both of them. Otherwise, you're only taking out part of the greatest common factor. You got to actually get the greatest common factor, not just a common factor. So you needed both the 2 and the x. So final answer, what the heck does this make? X. What does that make? 2. And there's a plus. There it is. How many of you would have had that right without my help? You would have been good. Okay, then everybody try this one. It's very similar. 15x squared minus 5x. Factor it. I'll pause for a second and give that one a shot. And then I'll have you compare it to the kid next to you. I'll just tell you who to talk to in a sec. Did you guys realize 5x can come out of both? 5 comes out of both, obviously, 15 and 5, but x comes out of both also. And then if you're ever stumped, go up here and go, I guess I'll divide it by 5x and see what I get. That makes 3, And there's still one x left because there was an x squared on top, so it's 3x. Raise your hand if you started right. Because then you'll probably end right. Minus, well, what does this make? Watch, when I divide 5x by 5x, it does not disappear. What's 5x divided by 5x? 1. There it is. How many of you feeling confident on that kind? Good. Here's the next kind. This is a little pattern that I taught you, and hopefully it just is like, oh, man, that's easy. It's called difference of squares. It's a 3-step process. You figure out what goes in the beginning, what signs are there, and then what goes at the end. All right, so let's see. Let's set that pass right here. That'd be great. Thank you. I hope you remember this. X and plus and minus and 2 and 2. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool. Okay, here's a more complicated one like that. 25x squared minus 1. And people get stumped by that 1. But 1 times 1 is 1. So this is just like that other kind. If I had said 4 here, you'd all gone, oh yeah, so I'll break it into 2 times 2. But this is a 1 here. So it's like the one we just did with a little twist. I'm gonna pause for a second while you try that one. I hope you knew that this was a 5x and a 5x. That's how you can make it be 25. And then it's always a plus and a minus, and a 1 and a 1. Now, how do I know that's right? Because if I go this times this, I get 25x squared. If I go this and this, they cancel each other out. So there's no middle term. Look, there's no middle term in here. And then the last thing I do is this times this makes this, and it does. So that's right. Any questions about that one? All right. I think we should do one more like that. Now that you saw me do that one, 16x squared minus 9. Cyril, what do you say? 4x and 4x and a plus and a minus and a 3 and a 3, and he's right. Who had the same thing? Okay, I think you get that kind. Now just watch close. What if we were this evil on the test and this would have been a 32 and this would have been an 18? Would you have realized that I actually just doubled both of those? And so I could have factored out the 2 first? Do you see how there's a 2 in both of those? And you could take it out and you'd have the same thing we had 2 seconds ago. See how I did that? This was really big and this is really big. Whenever that happens, you got to go, okay, there must be a 2 in it or a 3 in it or a 5 in it or something like that. And I take the 2 out and then I'm left with something that's more like, oh, these numbers aren't so bad. That one's going to be 3 and 3. This one's going to be 4x and 4x. All right, so here's one like that. 50x squared minus 2. Pro tip, always look for a GCF. These two have a GCF. Megan, what do you think we should do first? So I get minus 1. Good.
Would it be
Can I just stop right there, or should I go further? Go further. And should this just be a 1? Yes, this should just be a 1. You know how I know for sure? Because you can just multiply this back out and go 2 times that makes 50x squared. 2 times that makes negative 2. So I know I did that right. Now, factor it again. That's going to happen more than once on this test. If you want an A on this test, you're going to have to be able to handle that kind where you factor something out and then you factor it again. Now, some of you who caught it are like, yawn, we did this one. Yep. But it looked a lot different at the beginning, didn't it? Because we had to factor the 2. There's your final answer. Oh, wait. Now let's step it up a notch. Typical question. And tell the zeros. Or you could say, and tell the solutions. Like, I can't do that in my head. Well, then just write 5x minus 1 equals 0. And do the same thing for the other side. And get 2 answers. Pause for a second. Let me give that a try. So, to start with, we set both sides equal to 0. So I'm going to now take a second and do the other side. 5x plus 1 equals 0. 5x equals negative 1. Wait a minute. You're not showing your work, Mr. Server. Then I better do that. And then I go x equals negative 1/5. The other one, add 1, add 1. 5x equals 1. X equals 1/5. Now that will separate the A's from the B's. Can you actually do this little thing and get the final answers? Some kids will, some kids won't. I'm hoping most of you will though. 1/5 to negative 1/5. Who actually pulled it off? Cool. Any questions? Okay, is there any harder ones? Yes, we're definitely still stepping up. Question?
Then do that on every question.
No. It's more like a couple questions on the test will say, and they'll like really make it obvious. They'll be like answers in the blanks. They'll be like x equals blank, x equals blank. And you'll be like, why are there these 2 things there? Oh, I need to give the answers. And these are the solutions. This was the factors. This is factored. Yay. That's part of your answer. But then there's the actual final answer is those things. Okay. So here I pre-whipped up this question to see who could handle factoring out a negative. Now there is more than one way to do this, but the smart way is to factor out a negative 1 and then factor it. To start with, the reason I'm saying that is there's a lead term that's negative. That makes it really hard. You could think of it this way. A negative person, somebody who's always complaining about stuff or whatever, can be difficult. We don't want to have that negative, at least not in the front. So we're going to factor it out, and everything will change to the opposite. Who knew ahead of time that it was x squared plus 3x and then minus 4? Everything turned opposite. Did you get that? That's important. Okay, then finish factoring it. Would you guys agree that scraping off a car that is frozen in ice is one of the most miserable things to have to do? It's for quite a few reasons. It's cold out there, or there wouldn't be ice. Number 2, you just came from somewhere warm to your car because you want to get in your car and go somewhere, and so you were all warm, and now you're outside and it's really cold, and you're like scraping off this ice. And I realized that's one of the things that I just realized it today, literally, that I have never had to scrape off the car. It's because you just go, make it warm, And then it heats up in there so much that it just melts off. It's really a fun feature of an electric car. It isn't just Teslas, it's other cars too that are electric. All right, let's see. Did you have X and plus and a minus? Remember, that's stage 2. Because there was a minus in the problem, I had to have at least a minus in my 2 factors. And then last but not least, it's either 2 and 2 or 4 and 1. In this case, it's 4 and a 1. And how do I know it's in that order and not the other way around? Because I checked. I went like this quick in my head. 4x and negative 1x. 4x and negative 1x makes 3x. So that is it. A negative 1 in front. X plus 4, x minus 1. Think you could do that? Time will tell. All right, and then the last one, the last melon. And I recommend everybody just for a second, right now, open up the calculator on your iPad, because you aren't going to know these numbers unless you go to your calculator and divide by something to figure out what the common factor is, okay? You'll need that calculator on your iPad. 20x squared plus 35x minus 10. Give that one a shot. Okay, so who noticed that they all had a 5 in them? Do you get that that means you divide them by 5 with your calculator? And you get 4x squared plus 7x minus 2. But I really want to make the point. I just got it wrong because I forgot to put the 5 in front. That was what we just did. And I bet a lot of you realize 5 went in it, but I bet you forgot to put the 5 back up front. It has to be there. Otherwise, your answer's totally different if it doesn't have a 5 there. Who actually remembered to have the 5 there? Well, that's a lot of you. Okay, now can you take the next step? That is the toughest kind there is, where you got to figure out a big GCF, you factor it out, and you got to factor it again. Did you realize I went with 4x and x this time? Anybody notice that? Anybody get that it was 4x and x? It was. If you thought it was 2x and 2x, that wasn't a bad idea. It was worth trying. But 2x and 2x would not give you the right final answer. I know. Because of checking like this and this. All right, now signs. If this one's negative, I can make this blanket statement if you can remember it. If that one is negative, this last number is negative, it has to be a plus and a minus. It's simple as that, period. If only the other one was negative, then you probably need 2 negatives. But if the last one's negative, it has to be a plus here and a minus here. And then how do you make a 2 with a 2 and a 1? So I try this. I stick in a 2 and a 1, and I realize that the outside makes negative 4x and the inside makes positive 2x, and that does not make 7. So it can't be the 2 there and the 1 there, so switch. If I just had the opposite of what I wanted, if it was the exact opposite of what I wanted, I would have switched the signs. But I have to switch the numbers. And the 1 goes here and the 2 goes there, and now I have 4 times the 2. Stay still. I know, it's very soon. 4 times the 2 is negative 8x, and the inside makes positive 1x. And together, dang it, that's the opposite of what I wanted. So if it's the opposite of what I wanted, I got to switch the signs, plus, minus. We will work on a worksheet to review for the test after lunch. I'll pause for a second while we go to lunch. Okay, so welcome back. Factoring test tomorrow. That's really what it boils down to. I've tried to show you as many things as I can about like how you can be ready for this test, but now it comes down to just you practicing. So would you please look for the worksheet, and everybody, I'm going to have, I think it's not open yet, but I'm going to open it right now. Now, 1 and 2 are just multiple choice, and I think you're going to find that they're not that hard. Like, you just have to multiply out your answer choices, and only one of them will work. So I think you can handle those. So I just want to get like a normal one. More like the test. Test doesn't have much multiple choice on it, so. Let's go number 3. Gianna, would you read me number 3? It's got a negative to start with, I think.
Negative 3x squared minus 9.
So the first thing you do, listen, because this is going to come up. If there's ever a negative in front, factor it out. But I don't just factor out a negative 1, because there's something bigger than that in both of them. What's in both of them? Negative 3 is in both of them. Factor that out. Jack, what do you think is left?
B squared plus 3.
Plus 3 is correct. And if you're like, how the heck did he get that second part? If you divide them both by negative 3, you'll see you have negative 9 divided by negative 3, which makes positive 3. Now, why can't I factor this anymore? Because it's called difference of squares if you can factor it. That has to be a minus. Plus, this isn't even a perfect square. It's a 3. It's not going to break up into 2 times 2. So that one doesn't factor anymore. Done. The end. All right, let's do 1, 2, skip a few. Find me one that's nasty nearer the end, and I'll give you some help. Which one do you think? You guys get to pick. Ask. What do you want? Yes. Oh, yes. Because this is a test tomorrow, I think if I have you skip anything, I'm going to feel really guilty if the problem that's on the test is just like the one I told you to skip. So, I know. But honestly, you'll be surprised. You're going to get through them all. If you're good at factoring, I bet you there's people that finish before they even leave today. Really, once you get good at this, they go pretty quick. So, I'm willing to do more. So, find one that you think looks scary and ask me to do it. Just pick one. Anybody. Don't go in order, jump to the end. Find something that's nasty. 28? All right, read me number 28.
5 squared minus 6 minus 24.
V.
Oh, it's V. Sorry, I couldn't hear the B from the V. So 5V squared minus 6V minus 24. Okay, so first thing I do is look for a GCF. Is there anything in common on all three of them? And well, bottom line is, when it's a 5, you know the 5 is the only thing that go in it. And 5 doesn't go into 6, so no. So then right off the bat, I make 2 sets of parentheses, and it's a 3-step process. Well, how do I make a 5V squared? With a 5V and a V. Now, you did pick the nastiest one for me, because 24 has so many factors. I'm going to write them down like this. 6 times 4, 8 times 3, 2 and 12, and 24 and 1. So my best advice was always to figure out whether the signs can be determined. And yeah, if there's 2 negatives, then it's negative. I know it's minus and minus. Now, we just have to figure out, is it 6 and 4? Well, I do some quick math in my head, and I go, that'd be 20, and this would be 6, and a 20 and a 6 can't make a 6. So then it can't be 6 and 4. But maybe it could be 4 and 6. I know, it's a pain in the butt, but I got to rewrite it this way. That's a 30 and a 4, and that definitely doesn't make 6. Now I can cross them out. I tried them both ways. They're out. So there, I got it narrowed down for you. It must be one of those, but they can all be reversed too. And you got to multiply the outsides and the insides until you find it. Any other ones you want help starting? Yes.
Number 13.
Okay, number 13. Would you read it to me?
Squared minus 4x equals 45.
Oh, minus 45
Oh,
equals 0? Or just,
No, just
just 45? Done. Okay, well then, three-step process, Carl. What's first step?
put the x's in.
Done. Because x times x makes x squared. Next, is it a minus and a plus, or a minus and a minus? Hint, if there's any negatives at all, this number is the key. Since the last number is negative, can you tell?
Minus and plus.
Yep, we need a minus and a plus. Okay. Then, last but not least, you just got to figure out ways to make 45. Can you think of one way that makes a 45?
15.
15 and 3 does work, but does a 15 and a 3 feel like it's going to make a 4? Then go with 9 and 5, because 9 and a 5 makes a 4. And is it 5 over 9 or 9 and 5? I don't know. Try it. Stick it in somewhere. Here's a 9, here's a 5. You go outside, inside, and I got lucky. I honestly didn't even think about it. I just slapped it in there. I had 50-50 chance. And it worked, because that's positive 9x and negative 5x. And I put them together, I get, wait a minute, that's the opposite of what I wanted. I got positive 9x, positive 4x, and I wanted negative 4x. Got to be careful with that. I saw some kids who are doing these opposite. Like, you could get the whole test wrong if you didn't check. The plus was here, and the minus was here. And I know because now I get negative 9x and positive 5x, and together that makes negative 4x. So I double check them always at the end. And there must be some where they ask you this, so I'll just remind you. If they want the solutions or the roots or the zeros, they all mean the same thing. That means you just set this thing equal to 0. Set this thing equal to 0. Nine and negative 5, if they needed that. Okay, that's a pretty long video, but this is the review for the test, so it seemed appropriate. You have lots of time. You have an answer key. You have plenty of problems to practice. And I recommend you finish this hour doing problems, and I recommend you bring some home. I hope you don't finish your worksheet. I hope you bring some home to practice so that this will be all practiced up and set for tomorrow. Don't forget to Dropbox this when you're done with it. It does count. And that's all I got for the video for today.